Good evening, everybody. Hope you're having a wonderful day today. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Julia's Truckin' Cafe Truckin' News Hour. Now, this week we're going to be talking about all of the weather and bad weather and everything that happened with this I call it a polar vortex that swept through the country, and how New Orleans got 8 to 10 inches of snow that they haven't seen in almost 100 years. And that blasted all the way to Florida. So, as always, I have lots of news to get to, so let's get right to it. In this story, black ice in Houston causes I-69 crash involving 4 semi-trucks. An unusual winter storm in Houston caused a wreck involving 4 semi-trucks on black ice. The incident happened around 3:30 in the morning on January 21st on Interstate 69, Southwest Freeway, north in Richmond, Texas, just outside of Houston. According to the local news, the snowfall and black ice caused one semi to overturn, a second semi then jackknifed trying to avoid the first one that overturned, and was soon sideswiped by a third. Ripping open the jackknifed rig, a fourth semi-truck was also involved and sustained damage to its trailer. 2 truck drivers were taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries, and the cleanup of the incident was so extensive as crews worked to clean the debris and wrecked rigs. Snow and ice are expected to remain in the area through Wednesday afternoon. And our next story, let me scroll down. We have a lot of news to get to. An SUV driver arrested for OWI after crashing into an Indiana way station. 1 second. Sorry about that. A motorist was arrested over the weekend after colliding with a way station in Indiana. The crash occurred on Saturday, January 18th at the way station on eastbound I-94 east of the Chesterton exit. According to Indiana State Police, a black 2022 Chevy Tahoe had driven through the entrance to the scale house at a high rate of speed. The Chevy struck the metal entrance gate, then continued through the scale lanes, colliding with several street signs and light poles. The vehicle came to rest on the bypass lane of the scale house against the metal guardrail. The crash sent debris flying, which shattered the way station's windows. Tahoe driver, later identified as Lopez Montserrat of Chicago, was determined to have been under the influence, according to Indiana State Police. Troopers say she was offered the opportunity to take a chemical test, but the driver's interactions resulted in her being charged with operating while under the influence refusal and booked into the local county jail. It was also learned that the driver was attempting to drive home. However, she was headed eastbound on I-94 rather than westbound toward Illinois, said the state police. They say that the damage to the way station is in the several thousands of dollars. And inmates, workers in this story pull a trucker from a wrecked semi-truck. A truck driver was pulled from his wrecked rig by a team of inmates working on a highway in Kentucky. This happened around 9:30 in the morning on US Highway 6 near Owensboro, Kentucky. According to the local news, an accident involving a one passenger vehicle and a state highway patrol occurred in the eastbound lanes of Highway 6 as a crew of inmates from the Davies County Detention Center worked to fill potholes. A semi truck then came over a nearby hill and lost it. Excuse me, nearly crashing into the inmates before jackknifing and then flipping. Inmate workers then rushed to the wrecked truck to try to free the driver, while others grabbed fire extinguishers and worked to put out the fire that had broken out. Several crew members then used a piece of metal to break a truck window and free the trapped driver. The driver, Brian Markham, escaped and was walking around and talking, but did sustain injuries considered to be non-life threatening. Quote, they actually got the fire out. There was leaking fuel. That was a danger from the fire, said the jailer. The inmates are expected to receive official recognition for their rescue efforts. So that was pretty cool of them. They could have stood by and watched that sucker burn, and they didn't. They came to aid. So that is pretty cool indeed. And a person is hit during a 15 vehicle pileup during whiteout conditions after stepping out of his wrecked vehicle. Up to 15 vehicles were involved in a crash in whiteout conditions in Michigan on Monday morning. The series of accidents happened on the 20th on I-96 in Michigan near Grand Rapids. According to the local news, the accident left several vehicles smashed in the median of the roadway. A box truck overturned. A semi veered into the roadside ditch. One person involved in the crash was hit by another vehicle that exited the wrecked car. Other injuries were also reported. None of the people hurt in the crash sustained anything life-threatening. Troopers say that there was whiteout conditions at the time of the pileup, which happens along that corridor quite often, and that some of the drivers were traveling at speeds far too fast for conditions. I-96 eastbound was closed for about 2 hours, and then it was still closed at around 12:30 that afternoon. And this next story, a man is charged with murder for allegedly shooting a person stealing an excavator. A man is facing homicide charges in New Mexico after allegedly shooting a person who was stealing a piece of heavy equipment. Miguel Varela, 22, the person that's shown here in the photo, is charged with second-degree murder, according to the local county sheriff's office. Around 11 in the morning on January 19th, deputies responded to Rio Bravo Boulevard and Prince Street in Bernalillo County, New Mexico, for a call about a stolen vehicle. Quote, the calling party stated he was following his brother's stolen excavator, being towed by a white truck, unknown at the time to also be a stolen vehicle. The vehicle and excavator were followed by the calling party, which crashed near 201 Prosperity, said the sheriff's officer. Deputies arrived on the scene. They found Isidro Ramirez in the driver's seat of the stolen vehicle, suffering from at least one gunshot wound. Deputies administered aid, but Ramirez ultimately died at the scene. According to the local sheriffs, Miguel Varela, brother of the caller, remained at the scene and was taken into police custody without incident. Varela was booked into the detention center on the charge of homicide. So, yeah, he was trying to help his brother out and really don't know exactly what the heck happened, but went ahead and got they don't really say if he shot the guy or exactly what happened with that. So I don't want to assume anything because it's all allegedly. And 5 are dead after a car driver runs a stop sign and drives into the path of a semi truck. North Carolina Highway Patrol responded to a multi fatality crash involving an SUV and a semi truck in Bladen County. This crash occurred on January 19th about 4 in the afternoon. According to North Carolina Highway Patrol, 36-year-old Hernandez was operating an SUV south on Purdy Hall Road when she failed to stop at a stop sign for a semi truck traveling east on North Carolina Route 20. The SUV entered the path of the semi truck and was hit. Hernandez and 4 children between the ages of 15 and 6 died as a result of the crash. The truck driver was not seriously hurt. Excuse me. Police say the truck driver will not be charged because Hernandez was at fault. But you still have that on your conscience. Even though she pulls out in front of you and stuff, you still have that on your conscience, I would think. Let's see here a second. And in this story, a high crash zone takes out multiple cows when cattle hauler overturns. Several cows are dead after a livestock hauler flipped on a notoriously dangerous curve in North Carolina. Accident happened on January 21st around 12:30 in the morning on the ramp of I-85 south to I-77 near Charlotte. And that is a pretty hard curve right there. The tractor trailer was on a sharp left curve deemed a high crash zone when it overturned, trapping about 40 cows inside and killing a few. The truck driver was not hurt in the incident. Police, cattle wranglers, and 3 other trailers were brought to offload the surviving cows. A sign deeming the ramp a high crash zone was installed back in December of 2024. The ramp is estimated to be reopened, later on that day, but it was like 12 hours later before the ramp could have been reopened. And anytime you're on the live stream, you want to leave comments or questions or anything, please feel free to leave it in the chat. I'll try my best to answer any kind of comments, questions. I try to read all of them, so please feel free. And in this story, 16 vehicle crash was reported on the Michigan interstate. And I don't know if it's the same as, I think this was a different one than the one, the other one was on 96. I'm just scrolling through here. This one was on 94. Michigan State Police responded to a major multi-vehicle crash in Van Buren County last week, Tuesday. This happened before 9 a.m. near Hartford, Michigan. Now, this is drone picture that you see on your screen. Troopers said that 10 passenger vehicles and 6 semi-trucks were involved in this crash on eastbound I-94. There again, preliminary investigation shows that 3 semi-trucks were involved in initial crash on I-94, and this caused a chain reaction resulting in 7 crashes and 5 people sliding off the highway. Only minor injuries were reported. The incident closed eastbound I-94 between mile markers 46 to 56 for hours. And the Michigan State Police said crews were close to reopening the interstate. around lunchtime that day. And a truck driver in a distinctive yellow rig is on trial for 3 out of 10 suspected murders. A truck driver previously excuse me convicted of 2 murders is on trial again for the 2007 death of a woman whose body was found years after her disappearance. 73-year-old Bruce Mendenhall went on trial the 21st, Tuesday, for the July 2007 murder of Karma Purpura. Purpura disappeared from a Flying J truck stop in Indianapolis and remained missing until 2011, when her body was found on the side of a Kentucky interstate. According to the local news, Mendenhall was pulled over by an officer investigating another truck stop murder just a few hours after he murdered Purpura. During the officer's investigation, he noticed the inside of the cab was splattered with blood, and the distinctive yellow color of the truck was hard to miss. Quote, "I saw a truck coming towards me that looked like the truck we've been discussing for the past 2 days," said the sergeant. The cab of the truck was literally awash with blood, former Marion County prosecutor said in the investigation back in 2007. Investigators were able to match the DNA from blood to Purpura. Some of her things were also found inside the truck. Mendenhall was taken into custody and implicated himself in at least 6 homicides during his interview with police. 2 murders at truck stops in Tennessee, 2 murders in Indiana, 1 in Georgia, and 1 in Alabama. Mendenhall has since been convicted of 2 different first-degree murders for his 2 Tennessee victims and was sentenced to life in prison for both of those cases. Now he's on trial for the Indiana murder and was scheduled to go on trial in Birmingham, Alabama for another suspected murder. Yeah, don't report on very many of those stories, thank goodness. And Trump orders federal agencies, including the FMCSA, to freeze pending regulations, which is a good thing. In one of the first moves of his second term as president, he ordered official agencies to halt all rulemaking activity pending the White House review. On January 20th, he issued regulatory freeze pending review order forbidding any agencies from sending a rule to be published in the Federal Register without the rule first being reviewed by the White House. The order additionally requires agencies to immediately withdraw any rule that has been submitted to the Office of the Federal Register but has not yet been published in the Federal Register. What the Federal Register is anytime an agency passes a ruling. So agencies make rules, Congress makes laws. They go from bills to laws. So anytime there's a regulatory agency, they have to do a rule. And the rules are then submitted to the Office of the Federal Register, which then is also put in the Federal Register like book. So then it's actually a ruling, like all of the ruling for FMCSA about the 30-minute break and about 10-hour rule, can't drive over that, the 14-hour rule, that's all in this Federal Register. So agencies are also advised to consider postponing for 60 days from the date of this memorandum the effective date for any rules that have been published in the Federal Register, or any rules that have been issued in any manner but have not taken effect yet, for the purpose of reviewing any questions of fact, law, and policy that the rules may arise. So you're going to postpone for 60 days um, any rules that have been published that the White House needs to review. The regulatory freeze order will put the brakes on any immediate action from all federal agencies, including the U.S. Department of Transportation and the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, FMCSA. A few of the most impactful rules worked to advance during the Biden administration with the heavy vehicle speed limiter rule, the heavy vehicle automatic emergency braking rule, and a broker transparency rule. With the Trump administration in place, it is unclear where these rules could advance. But the president's first term showed there's a strong tendency toward the deregulation of federal agencies. That's their opinion. This article's opinion. The owner-operator, OOIDA, and other trade groups recently penned a letter asking Trump to put a stop to any speed limiter rule for commercial trucks. So he put a pause on everything is about what he did. They've been going around and around and around with the speed limiter rule for ages. And you just don't know if it's ever going to get passed. So there's a lot to that. Hold on. Lost my place. My bad. Sorry about that. There we go. Yeah, gotta love being live. And a family-owned trucking company in this story burned to the ground from charging a lithium-ion battery. A family-owned trucking company in Wisconsin was deemed a total loss after a fire caused by charging a battery. The fire started before 3:30 in the morning on January 13th at the Strupp Trucking Building, County Road XX in Onalaska, Wisconsin. According to the local news, firefighters were called to the scene of the large structure fire and used over 100,000 gallons of water to extinguish the flames and subsequent hotspots. 7 fire departments aided in the firefighting, and multiple water tenders were called to the scene due to the severity of the fire. Since the fire, officials have determined that the cause was an unintentional electrical fire caused by a charging lithium-ion battery. So there we go. It just, I just don't believe in electric vehicles. I really don't. You can't, and not with, driving a semi-truck. And again, for part of the bad weather, 200 drivers were stranded on Alabama highway following a semi-truck crash. Police say that hundreds of drivers are stranded on a snowy Alabama highway last week, Wednesday morning, following a Tuesday afternoon semi-vehicle crash. January 22nd, the local county sheriff's office said that approximately 200 vehicles are stranded on Highway 231 and Highway 53 near Ozark, Alabama. Been there plenty of times going out to Walmart. So 231 is like south of Birmingham, and you take that all the way down, and to get into Walmart down in that direction. According to local news, the backups on Highway 231 began when a semi-truck jackknifed near the 50-mile marker, resulting in people sliding off. Initially, the sheriff's office reported that about 40 drivers were stuck in the traffic backup on Highway 231, but that number grew overnight as people continued to drive on the highway. No injuries were reported. Some drivers were reportedly been stuck on the highway since 7 o'clock the previous evening. As of Wednesday morning, both directions of the highway were closed. Quote, recovery efforts are ongoing but are compounded by more vehicles trying to enter this area. Please avoid the area, they were trying to say. The National Guard, they even called out, was on the scene assisting with moving stuck trucks and in cars. So, yeah, it was a mess down south of Birmingham. They don't get snow. So, you can see on the photo, that looks like something out of Wisconsin or Illinois. That's in Alabama. They don't get snow like that down there. They have no way to remove it. It's nuts. And in this story, a truck and a dog were saved from a frigid crawl through an irrigation ditch. The incident happened on the 21st in Sterling, Colorado. According to the local news, the cattle trailer was empty when it veered off of Highway 14 and crashed into an irrigation ditch full of icy water. The truck driver and the dog were unhurt, but were stuck inside the cab due to the frigid water. First responders used a ladder to get the driver and the furry co-pilot to safety, and recovery crews were able to drag the truck out of the ditch. So at least it was empty, and thank goodness everybody was okay on that slide off. And drivers were stuck on I-75 overnight. And they just walked off and abandoned their rigs in the middle of the road. There again, this weather was just nuts. Drivers were stranded on Interstate 75 in Georgia overnight after a semi-truck fire blocked the highway. Excuse me. This happened in Monroe County, Georgia. According to the local news, a semi caught fire on I-75 at High Falls Road, blocking all lanes just before Highway 36. Several lanes were reopened just before 9:30 in the morning, but crews were unable to remove the burned semi due to icy conditions, leading continuous traffic buildup. The traffic eventually led some truckers to abandon their trucks on the interstate. These empty trucks are still blocking I-75 north on Forsyth as of 8:30 in the morning. Officials still have not made plans to remove the abandoned rigs as conditions were still treacherous at the time. The Georgia Department of Transportation advises that drivers use US 41 north as an alternate route. Emergency services are on scene working to address this incident. They said, please exercise caution, follow all official instructions, and consider using suggested alternate route. So, yeah, they just walked off and left them. Why? Why? Because you might have needed something to eat? I mean, why? I don't get that. And here a semi-truck pushes a car inside of a truck repair shop. A semi-truck crashed into the side of a truck repair shop in Pennsylvania, taking a car with it. This happened just after 1 o'clock in the afternoon in Newberry Township, Pennsylvania. According to local news, a semi-truck struck a power pole, an unoccupied car, thank goodness, during the crash, pushing it into the truck repair shop building. First responders said that no one was hurt, but clearing the accident took nearly 10 hours. Quote, it's actually quite insane that there were no injuries, given the impact that it was in an unoccupied vehicle. There was also another vehicle parked beside it, that one with an employee inside eating his lunch, and he escaped with no injuries. Nothing, no damage to his vehicle. He was very, very lucky, said the assistant fire chief. Before moving the wrecked vehicles, firefighters had to wait till electric crews came to arrive at the scene to deal with the several wires that were exposed in the crash, because he hit the power pole first. Now you get an incident like this where we've been here since like 1 o'clock, and I still have the same people who were here originally who are willing to brave the cold and work on the incident. The exact reason for this crash was not released at the time of the accident. So, really don't know what happened, why that driver, did what happened. So, I don't know. And here, a truck driver is jailed after driving on Interstate 40 where commercial vehicles are banned. And not only did he do that, but he got stuck on the barricades. So in the photo, this is Interstate 40 on a better day. And this is what's called the gorge. And it goes from just at about the 20-mile marker inside the North Carolina line all the way to 420 something, maybe 450. I'm not sure on the Tennessee side, but goes into Tennessee and is real curvy, and it's only 50 miles an hour for trucks. And because you see it's 2-lane, normally it's they made it like 2 lanes, but it's usually like a 4-lane, and then you got the 4-lane going the other way. But since Hurricane Helene, they've been working on the roadway in that section, so they banned it to commercial vehicles. Well, a truck driver is accused of ignoring the signage and driving onto Tennessee Interstate where commercial vehicles traveled and have been restricted for months due to, like I said, Hurricane Helene. I cannot even pronounce this truck driver's name. And Kit, he's 23, was arrested on January 17th and charged with driving on a closed roadway, according to the warrant. For months, I-40 in that area has been closed to commercial traffic due to the damage caused by Helene in late September. According to the report, he allegedly ignored warning signs that the roadway was closed to commercial traffic, driving past the final truck exit at mile marker 440, traveling to mile marker 451, and then turning around to travel east on I-40. The warrant says that he took exit 447, made a U-turn, then took exit 451 and moved the road barricades. He then reportedly became stuck between those barricades while trying to drive his commercial vehicle, blocking the path of road workers. Tennessee Highway Patrol was stationed at mile marker 541 at the time the incident occurred. When police made contact with this young man, he said to have mentioned his GPS several times. He was arrested without incident and booked into the county jail. A co-driver took over, operated the truck after his arrest, said the police report at the time. So I'm like, really? You can't not read English and expect to drive a commercial vehicle. I see a lot of people doing like a Google Translator or something like that when they come into a shipper or receiver. You can't hold up Google Translator to street road signs and expect to know what they say. I don't get that. And here, 5 are dead after a semi-truck strikes 3 vehicles on a Texas bridge. Police are investigating a fatal multiple vehicle crash involving a semi-truck in Zavala County, Texas. This crash occurred about 1 in the morning on January 21st on the Nueces River Bridge, Nueces, carrying U.S. Highway 57 near La Pryor. Officials say 2 white Ford vans, both towing trailers, were involved in a rear-end collision while eastbound on the bridge. A white Ford pickup truck stopped on the bridge due to the crash. The Texas DOT said that several people exited the vans and attempted to signal the driver of a white Freightliner to stop for the crash and due to ice on that bridge. The driver of the semi attempted to avoid the crash by traveling in the middle of the road but lost control and ended up striking all 3 vehicles. Uh, the van driver, Maria 60, was killed in the crash. Van occupants, who were 63, 60, and 43, as well as the pickup truck driver, were found dead at the bottom of the bridge. 7 others were hospitalized with no injuries. New York Times reports that police are investigating whether the individuals found at the bottom of the bridge were stuck or whether they jumped to avoid, if they were hit, let's say, or did they jump from the bridge to avoid being hit by the semi. The truck driver was not seriously hurt at that time, which our hearts and condolences go out to those families. And a trucker still tried to make a delivery after fiance stabbed him while he was resting at a fuel island. A woman is facing felony charges and up to a decade in prison after stabbing her fiance as he rested in his truck cab at a truck stop earlier this year. The incident occurred on the 17th of January at Little America in Rock Springs. According to the local news, truck driver and his 43-year-old fiancée, Nicolette Ann, were parked at a fuel island when the truck driver went in to lay down in the sleeper. Shortly after, Nicolette Ann started yelling at him and eventually stabbed him. She then left the truck and walked into the store. The driver followed her into the store and questioned her why she stabbed him, all while bleeding through his clothes. He declined store's employees' offers to call an ambulance and he left the store. At some point inside the store, Nicolette Ann told the store clerk that her fiance had beat her up and asked that someone call the police for her, but left the store before the officers showed up. A short time later, she returned and admitted to employees that she had been the one to stab her fiance. The trucker then returned to the store and requested that the police call be canceled because he had a load to deliver and he needed to leave. Police arrived anyways. When questioned by the police, the truck driver explained that Nicolette Ann had balled up a knife in her fist, stabbed him in the abdomen before quickly withdrawing the blade. She then was taken into custody and the truck driver was taken to the hospital for treatment of his stab wound. Nicolette Ann is being held on a $70,000 bond in the local detention center on charges of felony aggravated assault. Preliminary hearing was scheduled for January 29th, and she's facing up to 10 years in prison and a $10,000 fine. Truck driver did not have liver or diaphragm damage as a result of the stabbing, but did require surgery to repair the wound, the stab wound, of course. He's lucky. Dang lucky. I don't get it. I just don't get it. Now, this is a video, and YouTube gets real funny about me, as I always say, about me showing video clips, and I don't want to get a copyright strike. But this picture is kind of grainy, but as you can see, this semi right here slides to the left, slides to the right, and all of a sudden loses it and then lays it over. He takes a curve on I-10 eastbound near Maple Fork at mile marker 24 on I-10 in Louisiana. There again, this is how much snow that they had in Louisiana, 8 to 10 inches. The driver loses control, swerves back and forth multiple times, and then eventually he overturns it. Several other tractor trailers then just appear to drive by. But at the same time, in their defense, they don't know when it happened. If you came upon it and you don't know if it happened a while ago or not or what, so, and it's hard to stop, and that's a pretty sharp curve. So you could see it on YouTube. If you would like, I could also put the link in the description if you'd like to care to watch it. But I see that quite a bit. I was always leery of all the years that I was driving. about somebody spinning out in front of me on roads like this that I couldn't stop. And I would, run them over. So that always got me skittish on driving those kind of road conditions. I know you should pull it over, but if, that looks like it's during the day, you think that the road is good, you run into black ice, what do? You try to slow down without hitting the brakes, and then you end up what he did. And there's a recall of over 1,000 Kenworth and Peterbilt trucks because the throttle pedal could stick. Truck maker PACCAR recently issued a recall for certain Kenworth and Peterbilt semi-trucks due to a potential throttle pedal issue. The recall is certain 2023 and 2024 Peterbilts and Kenworths. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, the affected trucks may contain an oversized magnet carrier, slowing the responsiveness or causing the pedal to stick, which would increase the risk of crash. Now, these are the models and makes. There's a total of 1,101 trucks that are being recalled. A Kenworth T180, the T280, the 380, and the 480, all Kenworths, 2023s, 2024s. Peterbilt's 535, 536, 537, and 548, 2023, 24s. Owner notification letters are expected to be mailed March 17th of this year. To remedy the issue, dealers will inspect and replace the throttle pedal as necessary, free of charge. So look in your mail if you happen to have one of those models. Look for a recall letter in the mail. Truck owners may contact Peterbilt customer service and Kenworth's customer service for this recall. And the recall numbers are 25 PBA and 25 KWA. So look for the recall letter in the mail if you happen to own one of those models of trucks. And in this story, a driver survives a wreck that left the engine in his lap. And it was caught on surveillance video from this. There's this local business, and this is their parking lot. And I can describe to you the truck come down the hill behind him, came up the hill, crosses this median, almost hits that power pole, almost hits the power pole right here that you see, and then crashes and ends up with the motor in his lap. This happened in Warrenton, Missouri, off of Veterans Memorial Parkway near I-70. 60-year-old trucker was heading east when he misjudged a curve on the highway. The semi then veered off the road, crossed the median, and struck a concrete retaining wall lining Warrenton Steel's lot. The accident crushed the truck driver and scattered its load of meat. The incident was caught on the business's surveillance cameras, and workers could be seen rushing to the aid of the wrecked driver. Next thing I knew, they were screaming, "Call the fire department, it's really bad," said Holly Scott, one of the employees at the steel company. It was just talking to him, trying to make him breathe, keeping him calm as much as we could. The guy was completely crushed by the steering wheel. The engine was in his lap, but he was still alive when they took him away, said one of the other workers. He said they were unable to get the man's name because he did not speak English, but that didn't stop them from doing what they could to comfort him. During the 2-hour rescue, once first responders arrived, he knew we were there to help him. He understood some of what we were saying. He kept saying, "Mama, Mama, come take me, come take me." So I just kept telling him, "Mom's watching out for you. You're going to be okay." Scott said they were just praying They're hoping he'd come out of it alive. He was transported to the hospital with serious injuries. As of last week, Thursday, he was still alive. Details on his current health status were not released. And yeah, that was pretty scary. Can you imagine having a truck motor, a couple of 1,000-pound motor sitting in your lap? Anybody would be crushed. Good night. And Ohio Turnpike is to crack down on commercial truck drivers that haven't paid tolls, coming next month, February of 2025. The Ohio Turnpike and Infrastructure Commission issued a warning to drivers last week about plans to punish toll scofflaws next month. Last week, they issued a notice to customers, including both passenger cars and commercial truck drivers, to pay their unpaid tolls or face the consequences, including late fees and vehicle registration holds. They'll pull your registration. In April 2024, officials rolled out a new open road tolling system on the Ohio Turnpike. Following the rollout, many drivers without an Easy Pass traveled in Easy Pass lanes and were issued unpaid toll invoices by mail. As of the time of writing of this article, 347,000 tolls transactions remain unpaid from the period between April and December of 2024. Because the open road tolling system was new, Turnpike offered a grace period to allow customers to adjust to it. During this grace period, the Ohio Turnpike suspended all late fees, collections, and vehicle registration holds. But the grace period is now coming to an end, and truck drivers with unpaid tolls have just days to get it paid up. Starting February 3rd, 2025, Turnpike officials say they will begin issuing the following late fees for unpaid tolls. Customers who incurred an unpaid toll by driving through the Easy Pass lane and who did not pay the first unpaid toll invoice within 30 days will have a $5 late fee added to the second mailed invoice for each toll that remains unpaid. Customers exiting through Cash Credit Lane who are handed an unpaid toll notice by a toll collector for failure to pay will incur a $5 administration fee. If the notice remains unpaid for 30 days, the customer will be mailed a second notice and an additional $5 late fee will be added for each toll that remains unpaid. So that could add up pretty quick. Starting on the 10th of February, officials will send an unpaid toll incurred since April 10th to the Attorney General's office in Ohio for collections and the Ohio Bureau of Motor Vehicles for a hold on your vehicle registration. Mailed invoices and notices that remain unpaid for 90 days from the issue date will be sent to the AG's office for collections and, like I said, for the vehicle registration hold. So yeah, they give you a chance. Now they're not playing. And this story, a truck driver is sentenced for slashing a fellow driver's throat in a fight over slow fueling at an Arizona truck stop. His crap is getting out of hand. A man was sentenced to prison for a truck stop knife attack following an argument that escalated at an Arizona truck stop last year. This Mr. Arline was sentenced to 3 years in prison. By Mojave County Superior Court Judge at Havasu. In December 2024, was found guilty of second-degree attempted murder for an altercation that left a fellow truck driver injured. This happened last year, February 4th of 2024, at the Pilot in Lake Havasu, Arizona. At the trial, the victim testified that Arlene confronted him at the Pilot fuel station for taking too long to fuel. A verbal altercation ensued inside the Pilot, which prompted an employee of Pilot to separate them. They say promoted, but it's prompted. The victim testified that he walked outside but was followed closely behind by this Arlene. A second altercation took place outside the station and ended in Arlene abruptly and violently slashing the victim in the neck with a pocket knife. He then fled the scene. In a subsequent interview with law enforcement, he admitted to cutting the victim, but stated he was acting in self-defense, of course. Throughout the trial, he claimed self-defense, but also admitted during his trial testimony that he pulled the knife out as he was walking behind the victim. Then it's not self-defense. The state argued the fact demonstrated his intent to kill the victim over a fuel station feud. I mean, really? Really? Wow. It's just ridiculous. Just ridiculous. The road rage. And a bill seeks to relax certain CDL requirements, building on the COVID-19 waivers. Lawmakers introduced a bill intended to make it easier to get a CDL by streamlining certain requirements. Oh, joy! Including allowing the CDL holders accompanied student drivers to be in the sleeper berth instead of the passenger seat. Oh, joy! How many more accidents are we going to have out on the highway with this garbage? On January 24th, Senator Cynthia Loomis and Mark Kelly introduced a Licensing Individual Commercial Exam Takers Now Safely and Efficiently Act. Lawmakers say that the bill builds on waivers of the FMCSA implementing during the COVID pandemic. The major provisions of the bill were laid out. Expand CDL testing, provide flexible supervision, streamline testing across the states. Yeah. No. No. That's just nuts. No. And sadly, workers open up a door to find a truck driver crushed moments after guiding another driver into the loading dock. A truck driver is found dead after an accident at a bottling plant crushed him against the loading dock Thursday evening. This happened in Seguin, Texas, around 6:30 in the evening. According to the local news, a plant employee told the truck driver to back into the loading dock and gave him the green light. The employee then instructed the driver to reposition the trailer and wait for further instructions. Tragically, employees opened the loading dock door moments later, discovered Vargas pinned behind the trailer, and immediately instructed the driver to move the vehicle to free him. The driver of the truck that backed into the man then attempted to perform CPR on the injured driver. A police officer then arrived on the scene and took over. Despite those efforts, the emergency medical team pronounced this man deceased at the scene. The deceased driver has been identified as 39-year-old Arlen Vargas from Houston. He was waiting at the plant to pick up a load at the time of the accident. They said he was out of his vehicle for unknown reasons. We don't know why he was out of the vehicle, especially that close to the building. We're still investigating, but ultimately it appears to be just an accident and a fatal one. We're deeply saddened to share that one of our trucking partners was involved in a terrible accident in the outside dock area. They said, and no criminal charges were filed against the driver. The incident was still under investigation. And a truck driver is charged with cocaine trafficking following a truck stop on I-80 in Illinois. Illinois State Police issued multiple felony charges after a semi-traffic stop along I-80 and covered a large amount of cocaine. This happened on January 18th. Illinois State Police performed a traffic stop on a semi traveling east on I-80. Probable cause search was conducted, revealing multiple packages of suspected cocaine weighing more than 10 kilos. They arrested 55-year-old California-based truck driver Jose Guillen and booked him into the local jail. He was booked on possession of cocaine, possession with intent to deliver, and cocaine trafficking. As always, I want to thank you so much for joining me this week. Like I mentioned, there was a lot of news to get to, so thank you so much. I greatly appreciate all of you tuning in, and you all take care and have a very blessed week, and keep the shiny side up. Until next time.